I want to begin, it's a somewhat somber note. A member of the cast who couldn't be here today, it's been a number of years, they haven't been kind to her, and she couldn't make the trip. But the Alien Queen, she's seen better days. Jim and Gale, this was a character, and again, I can't help but think of her as a character and not an effect or a creature. The Alien Queen is a character you didn't know you could pull off when you dreamed it up. And even before you wrote the character, this final scene, this throwdown between Ripley and this big space mama, you had to do a test. Let's talk about the test you did with the late Stan Winston just to prove to yourselves. Let's hear it for Stan Winston.
Stan was a great friend and collaborator, and I'm sure he would have loved to have been here as well. And he had such a big, he was part of the cast essentially, because he created the Alien Queen, made her live and breathe. Although I always say that we believe the Alien Queen was real because Sigourney made us believe that Ripley was seeing it.
It wasn't real? Now you tell me.
She wouldn't look, because there were hydraulics and mechanics and guys inside it and all kinds of crazy tricks. Guy with a fishing line on a pole to move the tail around. And Sigourney didn't want to know about any of that stuff because she wanted it to be real in her mind. But you know it was rubber, right? It was rubber and fiberglass. It really was.
I don't even want to hear about it. I'm convinced she is out roaming around this world, hungry and angry, and you should all be careful.
She's pissed off.
I bet she is.
So Gale, I think you were telling me when we did our story that...
So you know, the truth is back then you didn't have CGI to save your ass if you didn't get it right on set. And that made us really honest. So part of that honesty is making sure to vet what you were planning to show on screen way in the early stages. And Jim and Stan Winston, and was it Shane Mahan?
Shane Mahan,
and
yeah,
John
Rosengrant. Right.
Got together in the parking lot of Stan Winston's studios with black garbage bags and ski poles. And Jim directed
We made
the first version of the Alien Queen.
Well, I had an idea for what the Queen would look like, but then the question, I had to sit down with Stan and say, how are we going to make this thing real, physically move? And it was too spindly for animatronics. So we figured, well, we'll just make it really light and we'll puppet it, and guys will move the arms. So there's actually 2 guys inside it, and then there's, I think, 14 operators off camera that are moving the head around and the jaws and all that, which is pretty common. It was done in Jurassic Park and that sort of thing afterwards. But we did this very lightweight model so that we could see if it had the right feeling, the right silhouette. Anyway, that's it.
Why? And you did it out in the parking lot?
Yeah.
Why? Because you needed the space? Because
it was just big.
Tall?
She's big. She's 14 feet tall. She's probably 20 feet across the arm span. Oh, man. Let's talk to the actors, guys.
We will.
Talk about the visual effects.
How much earlier than when you started the film?
Oh, that was probably, we started the film in late August or early September, I think, and this would have been in May.
Because we moved over
In June, I think,
so it was before we moved to England.
Yeah, we shot the whole thing at Pinewood Studios.
Preparation,
yeah.
Now, Sigourney, you got an Oscar nomination for this part, for playing for aliens. But everybody knows what a real-life badass you are, so how much acting was going on with Ripley? How much of Ripley is you and vice versa?
Well, I just told Gale, who produces The Walking Dead, that in spite of what I've played, I do not have the courage to look at even 5 minutes of it because I'm so suggestible that then I would see zombies everywhere on the New York streets or in the woods or whatever. So I realize now, all acting. I actually based it on a friend of mine who's an environmentalist who's kind of, it's not that she's not kind and has feelings, but she's very kind of unsentimental about things. She just goes forward and gets things done. So she was my inspiration, as well as the incredible writing. and the incredible situations that Jim put me in with Newt and with these guys who all thought I was a kind of loser and bad luck, and in real life. But no, I mean, that's what you get as an actor. You come to the set, and with this ensemble, when the scenes happened, it was all so real, and I could feel their just kind of like, who is this woman that we're stuck with and we're going to have to save? Well, you all know what happened.
So I just want to start with Bill.
I'd like to thank the Academy. I just have 3 words to say. Game over, man!
How did Hudson ever get through basic training, man? Nerves of steel.
Oh, man. But he's not a coward. I don't run. I mean, Paul Reiser, now he's a coward. He tries at one point to sneak out the back door, and he does the classic kind of...
That was a beautiful imitation.
Thank you.
But what does that scene conjure in your mind? What memories does that evoke?
It's your favorite set.
What's that?
It's your favorite set, the APC.
It tried to kill you all.
Oh, yeah, that set was... No, that wasn't the APC.
Yeah.
No,
You're in the APC.
that was
Oh, God, yeah.
when the roof
armored
collapsed.
vehicle?
The whole ceiling collapsed. I thought, God, I must really be sucking here.
I think it hit you.
Yeah.
No, I have to say, when I played this character, when I got the call to do this, I was so thrilled, but I was at the same time very nervous, and it's hard to sustain the guy that's always scared. And I should have, in retrospect, 30 years later, I'm looking, yeah, it's okay. But I didn't embrace it like I should have. I was very nervous. Sigourney was so supportive of me. But
You were brilliant in
but
the
I
film.
thought-
What could you have
Come on.
improved?
He was brilliant, right?
I thought
Why
the
are
character...
you trying to unsell this?
But I thought the character was just going to wear out his welcome, and people were just going to, when is this guy going to die already? But, Jim used the Hudson character and me in the role as kind of a pressure release valve.
It's exactly what it was. It's the measure of the tension of the film on the audience that you give them the ability to laugh, and it releases that tension so that it can build up again.
I just wish I could have laughed more.
And then you gave him a heroic ending, saving us.
That's right. It's actually one of the few things that's not in the script as the way we did it is that you go down fighting, and you made up your own dialogue on that. The thing is that Bill made up different dialogue on every take, and he was yelling it over a machine gun, so none of it actually recorded. And we spent about 4 hours in ADR one day trying to figure out what he said.
I still don't know, Jim.
We're still not 100% sure.
Can we re-loop it? Is it too late?
Oh yeah, you want some of this? Take that. Come here. It just was random.
Now, is it true that Lance, the scene with the knife over Bill's hand, that was very well rehearsed except with Bill? That you were not involved in the rehearsal for that? Is that story true? That's one of the legends.
Well, there's a lot of legends, and they're all true, of course.
I'll tell you the way it happened.
All right.
Let's see if
Bill-
it still works.
Bill being the kind of actor he is, he jumped right in on it. I mean, Jim and I were sitting to the side, and I said, Jim, what if I put my hand on Bill's hand? I'll protect him. That's my nature, So, and I'll do the thing as quick and as hard as I can. And Bill jumped right in on it. So, he played it and made it work. It was, I just didn't want to do a demonstration. That's what I felt.
Yeah. You wanted to protect somebody. That was your instinct.
I wanted to cut his pinky.
Lance
No, I'm kidding.
Lance works very internally on the character and for a long time. And so he was really fast with the knife gag, but on the day he came up with this suggestion, so he did it. The thing that's interesting is that I wasn't sure if it was fast enough to look superhuman, and so we undercranked the camera on some of the takes. We wound up not using it because it was too fast. The takes that's in the movie is actually Lance doing it that fast.
Yeah.
Amazing. And
grab his hand right now and just.
Sure.
Michael, Hicks is the. I think it's fair to say he's a strong, silent type. In that scene, he's contemplating. He doesn't say a lot. He's very stoic. And you were one of the last people to join the cast. I believe that's the story I heard, that you came on kind of at the last minute. What was it like joining this group sort of already in motion, and how did you get inside the head of Hicks?
Well, first of all, I had some comfort level because I had worked with Jim and Gale on the Terminator, and I'm glad I did a good job for him on that one. Yeah, I got a call from Gale on a Friday night. I was in Studio City, and she called me, and Gale, how you doing? She said, is your passport in order? And I said, yeah, I think so. And she said, can you be here Monday morning to play Hicks? And I said, hell yes. So I got to jump right into it. And Hicks is not a guy that, talks a lot, so there wasn't a lot of... There was a feeling, and there's always been a feeling about this cast, that we all supported each other, and you don't always get that on films that you work with. I've never heard anybody on this set or the other actors' work say anything negative about anybody else on the set, as far as actors go and actresses go. And believe me, that stuff happens all the time. And I credit Sigourney, really, because, Sigourney's beautiful. She is sexy. She is a brilliant actress. She is smart. She's got a great sense of humor. But I think one of the reasons that Jim and Gale like her so much is she has an incredible work ethic. Nobody works harder than maybe Jim, but hardly anybody, and Gale, but hardly anybody works as hard as she does. And the cast made me feel welcome right from the very beginning. And if you notice, Hicks doesn't have a lot of dialogue, but so it wasn't like hard learning lines and so on and so forth. The cast they just embraced me. And again, Sigourney was kind of the head of the snake when it came to us, and I just felt like I was part of the team from the moment that I showed up. I think everybody wanted me to do well, and I saw the movie about 10 months ago, I think, a year ago, whatever, and I was watching television and I was flicking through the channels, and the part that I started watching was when they solder that thing open or with fire and the thing falls through. And I thought, okay, here we are at the beginning of the movie, and I'll watch a little bit of it, And I watched it, and there was no commercials, and, of course, I hadn't seen it in about 10 years. And I watched it, and it was, so fun to watch. And what I really had kind of forgotten about, but not really, was the relationship that Hicks has with Ripley, and the fact that I've always wanted to support leading ladies as an actor. I've always wanted to say, well, if you're more comfortable here, then I can stand over here. And it's always been very important to me to support my leading lady, but Jim actually wrote that into the script, and I don't get a chance to play that kind of leading man thing so often, you know. I'm usually crazy, you know, wild, whatever. And when I saw the movie this last time, I thought, what a nice relationship we had. It was just such a, and again, it was written that way. There was no improvisation. Jim knew exactly what he was doing.
I think it could have gone somewhere if Fincher hadn't killed you all.
Shots fired.
I think you're right.
No one could have played that part as like you did. You just so effortless and so warm and so kind of debonair, even though you were a grunt. Very, very cool. I was very lucky.
Thank you.
I want to ask Paul Reiser now. Paul,
What happened?
you're so fun to hate in this movie. How did you find Burke? Who is he based on?
Well, you know,
hurt you?
before Jim actually cast me, they had two big black bags, and they would hold up and see if they could make it look like me, and it didn't work. It did not work, and they said, we're going to have to go with the guy. What was the question? That's all I had.
I just said, who hurt you? Who inspired this man?
Well, you know, I've always said this is one of those rare scripts that you read, and it's not only, you know, it's good and it's going to be a hit, but it's just like it was compelling as a read. Just physically reading it, it was gripping. And I looked and I said, well, if this guy's crazy enough to let me be in his movie, then I thought, well, I have this part. This movie is going to be great. I have this much, and my task was as an actor, my choice was, don't screw the whole movie up. That was my thing. If I can just not stop the film when people go, wait a second, why is this guy in the movie? Then I'm okay. So luckily it worked.
What was
I think. I could be wrong. A lot of people did walk out.
I think, did it work, guys?
We don't know.
Did it work? It worked. I think it worked. It's one of the great all-time bad guys.
Well, you say bad guy. I say misunderstood.
You think he was good?
Misunderstood. I didn't say good. Misunderstood.
What was it like in the cast dynamic, though? Because as the guy who none of the other characters liked, did any of that bleed over? Were you a method actor? Did you manage to alienate the whole cast at any point?
Well, I'm such
Yes.
a pussycat. You know what? I was actually everybody was very supportive. And we all hung out. But what was really kind of, excuse the pun, alienating was these guys had like 2 or 3 weeks of boot camp. And they had all their drill and all the equipment, and I was not in that, and I had like a little notebook and a pencil. That was it. And I said, I want all the cool stuff that they have. I remember that was a choice. I said, I'm going to bring this Filofax. And the day before I first shot, Jim said, think seriously if you want to have that prop, because you're going to hold that for the next 3 months. I said, well, maybe Burke loses it in the bathroom or something. If we can change our mind mid-course. But yes, that was the only part I felt like, I want to be with those guys with all the gear.
Mm-hmm. But did you wish you had done the boot camp? Or were you fit enough?
You know what? When you're fit enough, you don't even have to
Yeah.
do it. And that's, a lot of people, they said, you know what? You're fine, as is.
But you got to wear the suit with a funny collar.
Yes, the suit, there was a suit, we had about 12 meetings on a suit. Because it was in the beginning of the film, I wear a suit. Right. And usually you get measured, they measure your waist and your shoulders and you're done. This was like literally 72 different measurements from your eye to your spleen. They measured everything. And I'm thinking this is going to be some phenomenal suit. I can't wait to see what they've done with these measurements. And I get there, it's a regular suit with that. I went, wow, they spared no expense with this suit, apparently. But that was cool. I did get a cool, neighborhood
We got
suit.
more notes from the studio
On the
on
suit?
costumes than anything else. It was like they had to focus on something, and they couldn't quite tell Jim, on the special effects or anything else, so they focused on
That's
wardrobe.
hysterical.
I mean,
Yeah.
the number of conversations I had about your wardrobe, which you never knew until now, was unbelievable. Jim knows. I mean, we basically, said, if you really don't like something, it's going to be 2 weeks to reshoot it, and that's going to be, $8 million. What do you think? And they're like, we like it.
I'm so happy to see Carrie Henn here, and I think you didn't. Acting did not become your profession. Teaching did, but I wondered what's it like. You teach 4th grade, so I'm guessing they're too young to see you in Aliens. But do the kids all know that?
Well,
Mrs.
you
Henn
would think,
was-
but there are some times when my students will come and they'll say, "Oh, my parents let me watch Aliens this weekend," and I think, "Oh, what were you
Bad
thinking?"
parents.
But so many of them, like their parents, they'll come to me like around Christmas time usually, or around their dad's birthday, and they'll like pull the DVD out of their backpack and, "Mrs., would you sign this?" So, okay, after school, just quietly come over, So.
I was gonna say, I bet you like parent-teacher conferences are always like somebody's hauling along their Blu-ray.
Well, no, but I have had a couple kids that said, "My dad has never gone to a conference before. It's always just my mom, but they both came. I think it's because of you."
That's awesome. So you were telling me a little bit earlier today that you weren't, like your parents weren't trying to get you into acting. Like, how did you get discovered by Jim and Gale?
It was kind of one of those freak things that just happened. My dad was in the Air Force, and he was stationed overseas in England. And I was eating lunch in the school cafeteria, and I usually went home for lunch, but it happened to be a day that my mom wasn't going to be home, so I happened to be eating that day, which is now looking back fate. And someone took my picture, and nowadays people would think it was creepy. But back then I didn't even think about it. Like, I didn't even go home and say anything to my parents about someone taking my picture. And so a couple days later, my dad, he worked in the hospital, and so the school nurse called him and said, "Someone took Carrie's picture, and they're looking for someone to be in a movie, just to give you a heads up." And my dad came home, "Did someone take your picture?" And I said, "Yeah." Who took the picture? It was Sarah Jackson. She worked. She worked for Mary.
She worked for Mary Selway.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And she's a producer.
Yeah,
I thought
she
it was
is.
a creepy guy and it just lucked out and got to the right hands. It was actually okay.
Yeah, and then I went back and did a lot of auditions at the school, and then I know one time they had us all go down on a bus, like a bunch of us from our school, and then it just kind of happened, and one day they called up, I think it was Gale, I'm not sure, called up and said they wanted me to meet Sigourney, which of course at the time I was like, "Oh my gosh, Ghostbusters, this is so amazing." And so we went there and went in, and it was, I think immediately, like I just felt an immediate bond. And then a few days later, they called up and said that I had the part. I had no clue really what I was doing. Yeah.
I've never heard that story. Like, I've never heard of somebody who has no training and no real desire to be in a movie. Being in a movie, Jim, what did you see? What were you looking for, and what did you see in Carrie?
I saw what you see in the film, and we had seen a lot of young actors. A lot of them, were doing commercials and things like that, and they would always smile at the end of every line, and I wanted somebody that hadn't been sort of conditioned by the system and, contaminated by the system, really, and Carrie just brought this incredible realness to it, and of course, because she wasn't an experienced actor and she was working on an R-rated horror film, big monsters and all sorts of swearing and gunfire and explosions and stuff, we wanted to kind of insulate her a little bit from that. And I have to give credit to Sigourney. Sigourney really took her under her wing, and they formed this great friendship, and I think that gave her a focus. Of course, her mom was on the set as well. But, we did try to really insulate her a bit from the whole experience. But I have one quick Carrie story that just plagues me, taunts me to this day. So, and maybe you remember this.
I don't know.
There's a scene where she's encased in the alien slime and kind of in this structure, and she's about to get face-huggered. And it took a long time to put her into it, and she had to hold really still, and there were these fiberglass pieces. And then I never really trusted anybody to do the blood right or the goo right or anything. And with all the actors, you guys all know I was always putting blood on you. And so I'm doing the slime, and I'm putting it on her face exactly. She's been in this thing for 20 minutes, holding a position, and I'm pouring this goo all over her. And in this little tiny, very with a slight English accent, very quiet voice, she says, it should be illegal for you to be able to do this to little kids. So I'm sorry, 30 years later,
Well, I will tell you something from that scene, because you told me, do not move. We can only pull it apart once. Don't move. Do not do anything to break this. And I was pretty scared. And I didn't get scared of all the other stuff, nothing, but that I was scared of. And I was sitting there, and I'm kind of bored, and I must have moved my finger, and there was a little tiny, tiny piece, which no one would have even noticed, that my finger brushed against, and it broke it off. And I was so scared.
Reshoot.
We're gonna know. Between that and having to wash that out. And I went back to my hotel, and we were staying at this Holiday Inn, and you guys had offered to take us somewhere, but my mom, we were, oh no, that's fine. So they sent me back to my hotel fully dressed. And it was around Christmas time.
With the goo?
Yeah, with everything, my hair, everything, because it took hours to literally wash everything out normally, but with that slime, it was just a nightmare. So wardrobe said to my mom, just bring it back, no, her costume, no big deal. So here I am, it's around Christmas time, and I've got my costume on, my hair is out like this, I'm filthy all over, I've got this slime dripping down me, and I've got my winter coat on, and we go in, and everyone that worked at the hotel knew what I was doing. It was no big deal. But I was like, oh, Mom, I don't want to go in there. So I pulled the hood up, and I went in, and they were having a Christmas ball. Everyone was dressed up in tuxedos and formal gowns. And my mom and I walked into the elevator behind some people who were all dressed up, and they just looked at me, and they all scooted over to the other side of the elevator. And I just was like, trying to hide because it was horrible.
Okay, so you were a Dickens character, apparently. So, permanent trauma, yes or no?
No.
Oh, that's good. It's a relief.